I'm Hayley Victoria and welcome back to my crime and policing channel. In today's session, we're going to be looking at section 24 of PACE, which is arresting without a warrant. So we're looking at basic policing procedures, and of course, arresting somebody is a massive part of the policing job. It's super important that you do it properly because when you arrest somebody, you're taking away their liberty, which does affect Article 5 of the Human Rights Act, which is the right to liberty. So yeah, when you're taking away somebody's liberty, you've got to have a good reason to do so, right? So let's discuss. We always said in police training, it's the holy trinity of things you need to consider when you're arresting somebody. And that is that you've got reasonable grounds to suspect they have committed or are committing an offence. I'll go into the legalities in a minute and read it properly from Legislation.gov.U.K, of course. The appropriate necessity criteria, and you give them the caution. There's those three things that you must do when you arrest somebody, and we're going to cover all of that today. I'm going to read it from Legislation.gov.UK, as I've mentioned, because that's updated all the time, and I want to make sure the stuff that you listen to is up to date and accurate. This is UK policing. It may be different in other parts of the world, and you know, I love it when you guys comment and tell me what it's like in America, Australia, even Scotland, who are different than us. Let me know because it's super interesting, okay? So section 24 of PACE, which is the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, and arrest without a warrant, constables. So a constable may arrest without a warrant anyone who is about to commit an offence, anyone who is in the act of committing an offence, anyone who you have reasonable grounds for suspecting to be about to commit an offence, and anyone who you have reasonable grounds for suspecting to be committing an offence. It's all about reasonable grounds to suspect, or they're actually doing the act itself. Subsection 2 of that says, if a constable has reasonable grounds for suspecting that an offence has been committed, you may arrest without a warrant anyone who you've got reasonable grounds to suspect to be guilty of it. Now then, there's no such thing as a copper's nose, right? You might have heard that a lot, you know, I've just got this like instinct when someone's going to be a criminal. Rubbish. You need evidence, not just what you decide. You need actual evidence. It's not 1976, guys. Come on, smarten up. So there's no such thing as a copper's nose. You need actual evidence and a reasonable ground to suspect somebody of doing something. Looking shifty doesn't pass, I'm afraid. You need more than that. So let's say there's some criminal damage going on. There's some fresh spray paint on the wall. It's quite offensive. And then around the corner, you catch somebody with a can of spray paint, honking a pear drops as they do. You're like, that's a reasonable ground to suspect, right? Come on. If someone's just walking past, you've got to ask them some questions before you've got that suspicion. You've got to ask those questions. You know, where have you been? Where are you coming from? All that type of thing. You can't just go, oh, wrong place, wrong time. Let's lock you up. You need to have reasonable grounds to suspect someone's doing something. Okay, it's not hard, is it? All right, so subsection 3 of that same act, which is section 24 of PACE, is if an offence has been committed, a constable may arrest without a warrant anyone who is guilty of the offence, obviously. Anyone, you ready, who you've got reasonable grounds for suspecting to be guilty. So, reasonable ground to suspect. Tick. Okay, now you're looking at your necessity criteria. So to arrest someone, there needs to be a necessity for you to take away their liberty. Okay, so looking at legislation.gov.uk, these haven't changed in the last few years since I've been out of police training. But so you know the fresh, I'm going to read them straight off the screen, and the necessity criteria for arrest are as follows. To ascertain the name or address of the person in question. To prevent the person in question causing physical injury to himself or another. To prevent the person in question suffering physical injury. To prevent the person in question causing loss or damage to property. To prevent the person in question causing an unlawful obstruction to the highway. To prevent the person in question committing an offence against public decency. To protect a child or other vulnerable person from the person in question. Everyone loves this next one. To allow a prompt and effective investigation of the offence or of the conduct of the person in question. To prevent any prosecution for the offence from being hindered by the disappearance of the person in question. So they are the necessity criteria from Legislation.gov.U.K. And like I've mentioned, they've not changed in a long time. So ascertain name and address, easy, right? To effect a prompt and effective investigation is definitely the easier one that people tend to use in training. To prevent the person in question causing physical harm to himself or anybody else. Prevent the person in question from suffering any harm. To prevent any further loss or damage to property. To prevent the person from committing an act against public decency. And to prevent the obstruction of a highway. To protect a child or vulnerable person against the person in question, and to prevent the prosecution from being hindered. There you go. By the disappearance of the person in question. They're necessity criteria. Okay, so we've got the reasonable grounds to suspect, tick. The necessity criteria, double tick. Last one is your caution. So when you caution somebody, remember when you're arresting somebody, you're arresting them on the grounds to suspect. And you're going to be asking them some questions in custody. So when you arrest somebody, use something called the when caution, which is also what you use when you're questioning somebody as well. Because if you do a stop search and or whatever, you question someone and you don't use a when caution, anything they kind of say you can't really use. So unless you caution them, you can't use it, pal. Okay, so we're looking at, I don't know, burglary. So I'm arresting you on suspicion of burglary. So you've got good suspicion that you think they've been involved. I don't know, they're walking down the street at 3 a.m. with a telly, someone's house alarm's going off. All right, you've got reasonable grounds to suspect they're the person involved. And on your radio, they've been broken into telly, okay? Ding, 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 ding. Reasonable grounds to suspect. Maybe they match your description, who knows, right? So I'm arresting you on suspicion of burglary. Your arrest is necessary to prevent further loss or damage to property and to effect a prompt and effective investigation. Use as many necessity criteria as you can. And then you hit them with the caution. Because remember, if they say anything, you can use it in evidence if you've cautioned them. So you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you'll later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Ding, ding, ding. You've got your three there, your holy trinity of arrest. So reasonable ground to suspect, necessity criteria, and then you round it off with a nice caution. So I hope that's helpful. Remember that your arrest without a warrant is section 24 of PACE. That all comes under code G of your Police and Criminal Evidence Act. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know it's only a short video, but keep it short and snappy and all that. Yeah, stay safe and please don't commit any crimes. Bye.